All right, I'm going to do something very bold. It seems like everyone's here. I'm actually going to start before class change. I may regret this choice, but we're going to give it a shot and hope that they will behave themselves. And one of the things I want to just begin by is introducing myself. I am Brian Tahart. I am vice principal of the college. I primarily focus on junior high. Mrs. McAllister will join us in a few minutes. She's the principal, and she does a little bit more of the high school stuff. But I mean, we're a small school, so it's all hands on board, so we do tons of stuff, we teach. But I'm also here as a parent today, so this is a bit of a strange thing. I have a daughter in grade 6, her name's Annika, and so this is a really weird feeling for me, because I've gone to many of these meetings before. I've been teaching here for 15 years. I've been in grade 6 in junior high school for all those years, and so I've attended this meeting many times. It's weird. And it is hard to believe, and this might blow your mind, but your kids are about a month and a half away from being half done K-12 school. Yeah, they're almost there at the halfway point, and it's really exciting. Like, this is an amazing time, but it is an emotional journey, and if this is your first time coming to a junior high meeting, it's weird. And I'm with you there. I was doing my slides last night, checking them over, and I was like bubbling a bit. I'm like, I can't believe I'm there. My daughter's too young, but it is an amazing thing. And so as the kids kind of start roaming by, it's kind of cool to see where the kids get. Now I'm going to turn this music off. It's lovely, but maybe the wrong feeling for right now. It's really blasting out of there, but it's really neat, the journey. And I am someone who was very fearful of junior high kids for the longest time. I had like 3 things I said I would never do in my teaching career, and I've lived to regret every one of those comments. One was I'd never teach English, and I ended up being an English teacher. I said I'd never ever work with junior highs because they terrify me, and I never go into administration. And now here I am as a junior high vice principal. It's not lost on me that sometimes our journeys take us into strange places. But I really just want to say junior high is incredible. You know, it has changed so much from when we went to school to now. There's a massive kind of shift in what learning's like and what kids are like. Genuinely, kids here are fantastic. We have incredible kids. They are kind-hearted for the most part. They make dumb choices from time to time, but that's because they have teenage brains. But one of the cool things that we really see here is we really work hard on avoiding negative patterns. And that is our focus in junior high. We shift away from don't do bad, because the reality is junior highs will make mistakes. It is part of the inevitability. Your kids are going to come home and they're going to do something that will blow your mind so much where you're going to be like, what were you thinking? I promise that moment will happen. And it will be different for different kids, but we all have those moments. But what we really look at is patterns. Are we learning? Are we growing? And that's the excitement of junior high. So the goal of today is just to kind of educate you a little bit generally on who we are at Masters, a little bit of what junior high's like, expectations you can have, and then just give you some time for questions at the end. Today is not the end of the conversation, it's just the beginning. And as we get closer and as the year progresses, we just wanted to give you a starting place to begin thinking through. And generally, the majority of parents in grade 6 decide to keep their kids here for junior high. It's kind of part of the culture and what's been here, but we know there's many options out there. And we know there's many things, and so it's always important to kind of begin the thinking process. But pretty much right now, like the last couple of years, we've seen all but 2 or 3 kids. So it's like any other kind of year exchange. The majority of kids have chosen to stay, and we're seeing that into high school as well. Now, Mrs. McAllister is hiding in the back. She'll just give us a quick... No, I know.
Really, less awkward, please.
Yeah. So, this is Mrs. McAllister. She's the principal, our fearless leader, and best math teacher our school has as well. Just a little secret for you, but just as we kind of begin the journey here, she is our stoic leader. So we're thankful for her. But what I'm going to do is just kind of give you a little overview of some of the stuff we will talk about. And again, lots of stuff to cover. Junior high is a massive experience, and these are just kind of our spotlight things for today. So I'll give you a little bit of like basic information about the college. Hours, before care, after care, all of those kind of like very immediate questions that you may have. I'll talk about options. Technology is always big, because I know some parents are like, I don't want to look at a computer for Christmas or something like that. We'll talk about that. Junior high sports, that's a big thing. Lots of questions there. And then I'll speak about the kind of a cool relationship we have with a group called Young Life. And then Imaginal Design, which is a program that runs from grade 7 to 12. We'll talk a little bit about what you can expect from junior high kids. We'll speak kind of in general terms, but it's always a fun thing, what learning is like in the college here. And then just some looking ahead towards high school, because one of the things that's really important to understand kind of as you embark on this journey is high school has changed a ton. And so from when we all went to high school together, it is a very different kind of feel. It's a different structure, and even something as simple as like getting into university has dramatically changed in the last 10 years. And so we'll talk very briefly. I don't want to scare you, because I know as a grade 6 parent, it's like, don't say H word, which is high school, and don't even get close to the U word, which is university, because it is very far off. But with that being said, one of my students from my first ever class, 1 second, Sam.
Oh, there we go.
Yes. No, just go around. Don't walk through. Okay. One of my students from my first ever class now works here at the school. And if you want to feel old quickly, that'll do it for you. And she's incredible. And so,
Thank you.
but that's kind of the neat part of it is, you know, there's so much neat growth and it goes quickly. And you've probably already experienced that, like your little kindergarten. Do you remember the little ceremony as they completed kindergarten and like the bawling of how big they are? And now they are starting to become little tiny adults, which is very interesting. So, college overview. Our schedule, we are 15 minutes earlier than the elementary. So with the exception of Fridays when we're only 10 minutes later. And that kind of has shifted a little bit, but we're pretty much on the same schedule. But one of the things that's very different is we don't have MOSP or MESP. No, MOSP. I always get the words mixed up. We don't have that, but instead what we have is we open the doors at 7:50. Kids can be dropped off. For junior highs, this space is open. They can come off work. Most of them end up playing a little bit of games, watching some Netflix. That's a parent choice, by the way. It's just kind of an open environment here. We have teachers around. And so it's just kind of like a hangout time in the mornings. Kids in the morning are fantastic. I always volunteer for that supervision, so I'm on every morning because they're half asleep. It's wonderful. So they come up here, they chat a little bit. By like 8:05, 8:10, a little bit of spirit rises and we send them to class. And so that's in the mornings. And then after school, we have a designated junior high room for aftercare. And so the kids can hang out. There's no sign up, nothing. If you have a date where they need to stay, they can just hang out in the space. Some of them go outside. We have a 9-square court. Some of them may go to Safeway, buy some food and come back. But we have a pretty open environment for kids to be able to just be here. And then if we have sports events, kids will stay, they'll cheer. We have lots of clubs that will run, but we can get to that a little bit after. If after 4:45, it's not the end of the world. If you don't even make it by then, they just end up sitting outside the office. We have an amazing facilities team here, and there's usually people around. And so really the goal is to just give a safe place for the kids to be. That's one of the things that's really important and near and dear to our heart here at Masters is in the college, this needs to be a safe place for the kids. It needs to be a place where they feel comfortable. And so it's not at 3:50 the bell goes, get your butts out now. This is their place. And ownership is kind of one of the foundational pieces that we want them to feel that this is their home. This is their extended kind of place to be themselves. And I will say, it's a place where we get to see a side of your kids which you may not see at home. And that's a great thing. For some of you, it means they behave way better at school. I remember sitting in a parent-teacher conference for my middle daughter recently, and she was explaining my daughter to me, and I was like, I don't think you have the right kid. I don't want to be rude, but you're not talking about my daughter. She's like, no, seriously, that's your kid. I was like, what? I'm jealous. But it's one of those things. We have a very neat relationship with the kids, which is always fun. So options. This is always one of the big changes coming into junior high. So in elementary, you got music and you got art class. Okay, in junior high, I'd like to think of it as a life experience time. It is a chance to start figuring out, because one of the big changes we see in junior high kids is they start really exploring, who am I going to be in this world? What are my likes? What are my dislikes? And that's all part of that trial and error, pushing boundaries. They're really taking time to explore their interests. And so we set up our options in a way that they get to try a massive variety of different things. And so we primarily break our options down into 5 main groups. Of course, one is other, because there's a bunch of stuff that doesn't really fit a group. But the first one is sports options. So there's an opportunity for kids. So we run phys ed 3 days a week. And then kids who need that extra kind of oomph or place to be competitive, we run our sports teams through our options, and then we run some physical activity-oriented options as well. It varies from quarter to quarter, but quarter one, we have a volleyball time. Volleyball teams run. Quarter two is basketball. Quarter three, it's the middle of winter, so we run something called off-the-wall sports. It's pretty much just a time to play random crazy games and have fun in the gym, sometimes outside, and then in quarter four, we run our soccer team. And then beyond that, we have some sports called, or the options called Lifetime Leisure Studies, where kids study adult hobbies. It's a course I took in university, probably the most fun I've ever had. And it's one of those things, research shows now, less than 10% of adults still play team sports. And the majority of adults move on to other opportunities, and so we want to give the students and the kids exposure to activities beyond just the core sports. And so it might be something as simple as going bowling. It could be something like, some days we do Sudoku. We do all sorts of wide variety. I saw the kids doing Tai Chi the other day, which was just awesome to watch. Little grade 7s trying to master the skills and be like, what the heck is this? I don't get it. But it's just to expose them to stuff. And again, you never know what will stick. I had a young lady, she was in grade 8 at the time, and she's like, Mr. Hart, I really like the Sudoku thing. I go visit my grandma now, and we play together. I was like, that's really cool. And then we learned crib in that class, and she plays crib with grandma as well. I mean, even something that small, a neat experience. Other things, we do outdoor education, and then there's often some other little things that might get mixed in. Next is kind of our arts, drama, music, photography, kind of fine art stream. We run a wide variety of things. So generally there's 4 to 5 different art classes that kids can take between grade 7 and 9. So there's some foundational art skills, there's modeling, painting, we run a sketching class, and then sometimes we have some specialized classes that kind of pop up based on student interest. We always want to be very open to that as kids are like, hey, we're really into this right now, can we do it? So we're doing a tile art class right now where the kids are smashing tiles and building cool art deco projects and stuff like that, which is really neat. From there, music class, very different than elementary. We are so thankful for the elementary music class because it lets us do really crazy things in our classes. So we shift from a choral-based program into a, best we describe as a school of rock program. In that kids can come in at any level, play any instrument, they can sing, or do a tech stream of things and get involved in the music experience. We have a professional grade recording studio, we have our own Spotify channel, our students perform at different events in the school, but it's just a really neat opportunity, and I see it almost as an extension of our mental health program. Kids get a place to find identity and explore music, which is really fun. And there's usually a group, and it always seems to work out to 20 to 25% of kids that just live and breathe it and love it. And again, we've had kids come in with zero skill. They come into the grade 7 music class and start playing a ukulele, and they graduate as expert guitarists, singers, and those kind of things. And we have other kids that will take it for a semester, like it, and move on. And so it's a really neat opportunity to just explore music, and at some point, if it works out, we'll take you guys and show you the music room. Probably not today, but we'll hopefully have a chance at some point, because it's a fantastic place. Then we go into our digital kind of tech-based options, and this again is always changing, with things coming up and moving out, but programming is one of the core things that we do. So we do a lot of introductory level HTML web coding, a little bit of JavaScript, or kind of exploring those different areas. We do some computer design classes where we look at actual design principles, video or graphic editing. We have a film class where kids can actually learn proper filming techniques, how to actually edit and those kind of things. We have 3D printing, so kids can explore that. And then we have a robotics program. And so in the robotics, we use something called Vex Robotics. We have a competitive team that we're kind of relaunching post-COVID right now. But before COVID, we competed in tons of local and provincial tournaments. And so it's a cool opportunity to kind of grow in the programming and in the mechanical side of things. Then we move into our leadership options. And so under the kind of umbrella of leadership, we've run a few different things. We've done core principles of leadership. We've done kind of service-oriented, volunteerism options. And then debate, I kind of clump into that. And then we've done public speaking as well. We have a competitive debate team. We actually have some students going to the nationals in Montreal in a couple of weeks, which we are super proud of and excited. This week in the provincials, we had one of the top speakers in all, or was it provincials or locals? I'm trying to remember now. But we had one of the top speakers come from our school. So it's something we've really grown in. And the debate program is a fantastic chance for kids to find their voice. And then into the other category, there's all sorts of like wild stuff and cool things that kind of pop up. So right now we're doing one called Handyman Skills, which is exactly what it sounds. It's just learning basic use of tools and how to change the oil in the car, and just some really neat basic things. We go into one called Using Our Resources, where they're actually building birdhouses and doing some wood skills. Now we don't have a shop in the school, so it's done in the cafeteria. So we're a little bit limited, and safety procedures have changed so much since we were in school. I mean, I remember I had a shop teacher named Mr. Maitland. He could only count to 8 because he lost 2 fingers on the bandsaw. We don't use bandsaws anymore because of people like Mr. Maitland, and I loved him. But those kind of things have changed a little bit, and so it's a little bit more basic than what shop used to be, which I'm very thankful as an administrator that we don't have to deal with that horrifying thought of kids and saws. But there's some really neat opportunities for kids, and I mean, we're doing a film kind of study class right now where kids are watching a movie called The Chosen, or like a TV show. So there's lots of cool experiences that come. Now, one important thing to kind of note is that soccer, basketball, volleyball options are for kids on the team. And the reason we did this was your kids are busy and you're busy. And we wanted to kind of lessen the loads on families if their kids are involved in sports. And especially in grades 7 and 8, we try to have almost all of their practice during school time, so that the only thing you're looking at is Tuesday or Thursday games outside of school. And they're generally at 4:30, maybe really crazy nights at a 5:30 game. And it's just, again, so other kids, if they have stuff outside of school, they're not stressed too much, and to make your life a lot easier. As a parent with a kid going in, I'm like, oh, thank you. The evenings are so crazy, we don't need more. And so that's kind of our hope in that. And the way the selection is done is, generally for the first quarter, a form will be sent out to you as parents in the summer. And then once we get into the year for quarter 2 through 4, we kind of announce it ahead of time, and the kids get a form sent to them. It's usually at 3:15 on a day, and right as school ends, because I made the mistake once of sending it during class. The teachers still remind me regularly that I did that. That was a bad idea. But we send this form, and they just fill out with their selections, and we try as best we can to put them in their top 1 or 2 choices. Once in a while, I pull a very mean card, and I put a kid in an option which I think they need, opposed to one that they want. So there are some kids that will be like, I am sports all day, every day, and I will just take sports options. And I might throw them into a public speaking option, or a debate option, or a tech option. Just again, we want to have that wide multitude of choice and variety and different experiences. And the good news is, and I always tell kids this, it's only 9 weeks long. That's it. It's at max 17 classes of this. You will survive. I had some young gentlemen who ended up in the sewing option last year, and I tell you, they loved it. They thought it was the best. He's like, one of the guys says, Mr. Hart, I was just hanging out with the girls. It was kind of cool. They taught me stuff. I'm like, that's great. Good for you. That's awesome. But it's just, again, it's that wide variety of skills. And I remember taking a cooking option when I was in high school, and I ended up becoming a chef for a while. And it led me into an interest area, and I still love cooking to this day. And it would have been something never. I was like, I play football, I don't watch it, I don't cook. And I grew to love it. Maybe a little too much. Next off, this is a big one, technology. What is the expectation? So similar to elementary, we are a one-to-one computing environment. The change is the kids are bringing their own laptops. And there's 2 reasons that we do this. But the primary reason that we do that is because the kids are going to need their own laptops at home. And so we go to, kids bringing their laptops. We predominantly ask that it be an Apple laptop. And the reason being is our entire server system is set up for Apple devices. And the way it's set up, if it's an outside, like a PC device or a Chrome device, they can't rent. We use a lot of things like iMovie for video editing and some of the options. We use some of the video editing, or the sound like GarageBand and those things. So it does make our lives way easier if it is an Apple device. If absolutely you are one of those families like, we do not do Apple, we are a PC family and I will die on that hill, we'll make it work. Maybe you're like, my kid has an iPad and they will use that. We'll make it work. It just limits their options of what they can do on our server. And so that's why it's way better and easier for them if they have the Apple device. And then even also some of the coaching through some of the tech stuff is easier for teachers when it's the same kind of operating system. But again, it's not a deal breaker. It's not the end of the world. It just makes life easier. And one of the things I will say is it doesn't have to be a really good one, okay? And as someone, I mean, kids have improved a lot, but I will never forget watching some kids curling, some junior highs, they were curling with their laptops down the hall once, and I was like, what are you doing? They were curling. I was like, I can tell. Why? And again, as I said kind of in the beginning, junior highs will make bad choices from time to time. And they will do things that'll make you scratch your head and go, what are they doing? It never happened again, and we were thankful. But, you know, bad choices can happen. And so I even say, like, we have a MacBook Air at home. It is now 8 years old. Still runs great. And that's one of the things I love about Mac devices. I bought my kids a Chromebook to use at home. 16 months later, it like barely turned on anymore. And so the Apple devices have a really good life. And they stay, as long as you update the operating system and don't put too much stuff on it, they run great. And so that's part of the other reason why we stick to the Apple devices is the quality level on them is better. But I would say like a carrying case is something you will not regret getting your kid. Watch plastic covers, because the cheap plastic covers can actually break the screens. These are all things that we've learned in the last couple of years, but just having that device and having like a responsibility level to it is a huge piece, and it's really nice for the students coming up, because it does give them a trust. And I'll be honest, like I've been here for 5 years, I have seen probably 7 or 8 broken screens, which is not much. With, you know, like how they huck them in their bags, and they one of which was mine, by the way, but I'm thankful my wife didn't come today because she would have. Yeah. Junior high sports. So how do we run sports is grade 7 is different than 8 and 9. So in grade 7, we try to have what we call a fair play mentality. And that if possible, and I'm going to qualify this with if possible, because we are always governed by how much gym space we have and how many coaches we have and the number of kids that try out. So I'm not guaranteeing every kid will play, but we try to get every kid on the team, and we try to give them equal play time in grade 7. The one exception to that, of course, is if we're in a title game, or you know, there's those like moments of like, we will push it a bit more, but grade 7 is all about fair play and opportunity. Typically in grade 7, if we have some kids that don't make the team, the one thing we look at is kids who have a lot of stuff going on outside of school. You might be like, you know what, you got lots of cool stuff happening, that's great. Let's let some kids who don't generally be on teams try it out. But once we get into grade 8 and 9, we really shift over to that competitive sport mentality. And we winning is not everything, but it is a part of what we're striving for. And we want to teach kids to have that intensity, that pride in what they do. And so we kind of shift towards that. There's generally cuts. I mean, we have, I think there's 37 kids joining or trying to get onto the 8-9 boys basketball team. And so it is part of the process. And it's, if you come from a big school, you're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. If you come from a small school, it's like, oh, no, we can't cut anyone. It hurts their feelings. And it is tough. It is probably one of the hardest parts of our job is kids who really have a good heart for it that just aren't necessarily up to the standard. And so that is part of the journey, but there's a large assortment of sports. There is not just 3, and I regularly remind kids of this because they see sports as team sports. That is sports. These are the other things. These are also sports. They are very competitive, and if you want to go pro in something, you're much more likely to do it in these things. Just to be honest. But these are like our other activities, and there's other things that pop up as well. So golf and cross-country running are right off the beginning of the year. So it's a good chance for kids to join kind of a team environment. Golf is really just one tournament. There might be one day of practice, it depends, but it's just really come, represent the school and have fun and work hard. Cross-country running, they'll practice after school, maybe once or twice for half an hour to an hour or in the morning. Badminton is kind of like in Friday afternoons, those kind of things. Neat opportunity. And then track and field, of course, comes towards the end of the year. And just a neat opportunity to try new stuff. We get to do javelin finally, which really gets some of the grade 8s excited. It's like, I get to throw a spear? Yeah, you do. I would not volunteer for that unless you're brave. No. It's it's all good. We've got 100% retention of kids in that, so that we are very positive of that. But there's other things, like sometimes we'll do a floor hockey team if there's interest in, and there's some tournaments and stuff like that. We've done European handball. So there's other things that pop up, but we really do that based on student interest. So we're actually looking at a high school handball team possibly this year because the kids are loving it in gym class and they've shown interest. So we're kind of done that. We hosted the provincial championships for handball a few years ago, or many years ago. I shouldn't say a few, that is not true. But probably 6 or 7 years ago, we had that here, which was pretty neat. So there's lots of opportunity for things to get involved in. Now, Young Life is something we're really excited about. And this is kind of an outside group. And the best way to describe it, it's youth group, but not affiliated directly to a church. So this is just a group of young people with a really cool organization they're part of that comes and just hangs out with the students. It's painful for me to say this. I'm not as cool as I used to be when I was younger. And they come in and bring something where they're not their same age, they're not kids, so they have some life experience, but they're also not their parents. And so there's some neat outside voices, and they kind of speak to the same messaging to kids that we do as a school about making responsible decisions, growing as a person, being a good person. How do we be a good friend? And all of those kind of conversations. And so they host weekly meetings at lunch where kids can come, they get pizza, they hang out, they talk about God and do stuff like that. They come and they coach events, they show up, they coach teams, they show up at events, and they're also mentors to some of the kids. And for kids who are interested and want to go, they run events outside of school time. So they took a bunch of kids to West Edmonton Mall recently, and I would say probably 8 or 9 kids from our school went on the trip. I was at a Stampeders game, and I saw Steven, who's one of the leaders, hanging out with 6 boys, 5 of which were from our school, and they were just enjoying the Stampeders game. So it's just a neat chance to have mentors in your kid's life. Not all kids are into it, but it's a cool thing, and what's incredible is they come and do it for free. They just show up and it's a place for them. They're funded by people outside. They're just amazing people. And so we've been really blessed with them. I mean, right now they're coaching through 2 volleyball teams and then moving on to coaching basketball teams as well. So it's been really neat to have that relationship with them. So if you hear Young Life or see the people around, they're incredible and just really changing. They even came, we did a little overnight camp this year and they came to that and just hung out and watched and did overnight guard with me, which I get paranoid every year because I'm like, oh, the kids are going to cause trouble, and I sit up all the night watching and it never does. But they stayed up with me and drank coffee. Imaginal Design. So this is one of the really cool programs, and I would say this is one of the hallmarks of who we are as a school. Academics is huge, and one of the things we focus on, especially as you go to high school, is we're building the resume. And academics is always the top on the resume, right below your name, this is what I've done. But in a lot of ways, your academic achievements is the check. It's like, yes, you've got that. And then we move on. And I worked in HR and in different things for a while, and it's a big piece of the academics, and we push hard, but we also want to grow the other side. And we talk about what is the currency of the future, and that is like creativity and design. And so the kids starting in grade 7 take a foundational program of design thinking for innovation studies and working through the basics of design theory. Now what's cool is grade 7 to 9, they're in essence taking a university level course, which sounds very intimidating until you realize kids are way better at design thinking than we are as adults. It is much easier for them to pick it up at a younger age. NASA did this cool study on creativity where they found 98% of kids going in kindergarten are creative geniuses. By the time they're leaving high school, it's about 2%. And so we really want to capitalize on that creativity that kids have, and this is a neat chance for them. So in grade 7, we really study, what is the 3-year kind of like innovation cycle? What are some little things that we can do in system improvement, object improvement in that like 3-year realm? It usually culminates with a project that at the end of the year, we've done things where they designed a new arena for Cal. We've redesigned, reinvented school. We've done things like that. We're just simple projects where they can think through and try to create what they think is a better environment. In grade 10, we shift to like grade 10. In grade 8, we shift to a 10-year horizon. So what is that 10-year horizon? And what are things I could invent today to fill the need for 10 years in the future? And it finishes up with a Shark Tank project where kids pitch their ideas to a panel of judges, usually parents, so write it down, that will be you guys in a couple of years, but they pitch it to judges and the judges choose to invest in different ideas, and we actually have a cash prize for the winning team, grade 7 as well, and they can kind of earn and win this, and it's a neat opportunity for them to kind of be innovative, think of new things, but fill a need for what's coming. And I always tell kids, like, if you have the perfect idea for now, by the time you have it ready, you're too late. You need the perfect idea for tomorrow, so by the time you have it ready, you're ready for what's coming. Which leads us into grade 9. We're looking at like a 20 to 30 year horizon. What is the future going to be like, and how do we gain a basic understanding of where things are going? And one of the neat tools we talk about is the cone of possibility. We're not talking about for sure's. And this class always kind of gets kids kind of frustrated because in math class you have a right answer. You know, in English you write the essay, and you know there's some pretty, but when we're looking at the future, we're really starting to like go into like, what are some possible outcomes? What are some things we can look at? And we start talking about more challenging topics like, you know, what is the future of workforce? What jobs will exist? Where does that put you? You know, we talked recently at the grade 9s, I'm one of the teachers in it, about like, you want to be a taxi cab driver? I mean, cool career. There's a lot of good in that, but it's not going to exist by the time you graduate. That is something that's going away. You want to be a surgeon. What's the future of surgery? Because if you look at the trends in surgery, it's going to robotics. And so if that's something that's really cool and you find very fascinating, you need to study biology and robotics and engineering. And so we start looking and understanding, like, where is the dynamic of our world taking us? So that would be that. And then in high school, we kind of do more of a personal focus. And so they work through that process, and it kind of goes through the same horizons, but does it more on an individual, so kids can really begin discovering, okay, what am I going to do in university? What kind of careers can I do? And then how do I get there? So now the fun topic, junior high kids. And I always laugh at this because every time I tell people I work with junior high kids, if they're not a teacher, it looks like I just hit them. They go, thank you. And they almost treat me like a veteran. They're like, thank you for your service. We appreciate it. I couldn't do it. And I was like, no, I have a great job. I love it. Junior high kids, though, it's important to understand they're going through rapid change. And, you know, we look at the biology of it. From 0 to 2 is where the most brain development and bodily development happens. The next most important time is during puberty. That is where their brains are rapidly changing, and they're going to grapple with the idea of who am I and who am I becoming? What is my worth? All of these questions are what they're dealing with. And so when they act like a jerk to people, they aren't actually mad at you. They're frustrated with themselves, or they're working through emotions, and then you actually throw in the emotions of puberty on top of that. It is great. And there will be moments where you're like, I don't get you at all, child. What are you doing? And there's going to be other moments where you see the absolute best in humanity. And that's part of the joy of it. But be prepared. I say grade 6 is like the culmination of, like, we have these perfect, amazing kids, and they're responsible. And it's like, my daughter the other night was like, Dad, you look like you've had a tough day. Can I make you dinner? I was like, yes. And it's like, and they retain that, but it's just with a bit of an edge. And it just kind of changes a bit because they are really exploring that. And one of the things I want to assure you is the teachers really in this school care about your kids. And it doesn't matter where you end up, anybody who teaches junior high loves kids. And they love junior high kids because you don't stay in it if you don't. Because the highs are huge, but the tough moments are hard. And so the teachers here, and you know, this comes with a little bit of a plea for you, you know, as you go into junior high, have some grace for the teachers. There are moments your kid's going to come home and say things like, my teacher is the worst human alive. They did this to me. And you have to think, and I've heard it many times, I can't believe what was done to my kid today. And I was like, let's take a second. That does not sound like the character of this teacher. Let's talk it through. And through the interpretation of a junior high, everything is targeted at them. I will never forget, there's a young lady once bawling, and I said, what's wrong? She's like, it's raining outside and I can't play soccer anymore. I'm gonna miss my game. I was like, what? She's like, I'm so frustrated. Everything's working against me. I'm like, it's rain. Nothing's working against you. It's just, this happens. But that's the emotions and stuff. So sometimes the interpretation of what's going on, give the teachers the benefit of the doubt and just ask them. And one of the things we really like to work on is having open dialogue between parents and teachers. Feel free, as a good teacher, ask questions. Be like, this is what I'm hearing. One of the cool things our teachers do in grade 7 and 8 here is they create a slideshow each week of what's happening. So here's the expectations. We have a calendar with due dates on them. All of the assignments go in Genius, and so we have a nice layout of what's happening. So there's many ways for you to be in the loop, and then when in doubt, just ask. And so one of the things that we do is all students will have a humanities kind of base teacher. We don't use the term homeroom anymore because it's different. The kids are always swapping, but they'll have a humanities based teacher, they'll have a math science kind of base teacher, and that is your go-to person to ask questions. Even if it's not in their class, so for humanities they might rotate teachers, feel free to ask that person, they'll get the answer for you. So you only really have to keep 2 people in mind as you're asking questions. But the reason we don't use the term homeroom is that our kids mix throughout the day. So their core 4 group is one group, but then they'll have a language group. So our students will either take Spanish or French, and so they'll have a grouping based on that. And with that group, they'll take their language, phys ed, and health. And then they'll also have an options group. And then they'll have a second options group. And so throughout the day, they're gonna mix and mingle with 4 different groups of people. So one of the things we always hear is that they're not with their friends. This is gonna devastate them. Like, they will be with their friends, I promise you. And if they're that devastated about not being with their friends, it's probably not gonna work out well in junior high. They're probably going to talk a lot. They may not be the best, but we try our best, of course, to pair kids up and have those relationships. But they will mix a ton, and it's part of our intentional process, because one of the things that will happen is social dynamics dramatically change in grade 7 and 8. Typically in elementary, we have very simple things that are our interests. It's like, I like Harry Potter. I speak to my daughter on that one, or I play hockey, therefore people who play hockey are my friends. Or my parents are friends with these people, therefore I'm friends with their kids. When we get into junior high, that dramatically changes. And we often will see kids cycle through friends, change groups, and it will be devastating for your child. And it's always hard to watch, but they always bounce back and find people. And so regularly we see changing friend dynamics. It happens really quickly with boys. I don't like you anymore. Me too. And they move pretty quickly. Sometimes a push happens and they're like, I'm done. And I'm overgeneralizing here. Typically with the females it lingers a bit more and it's a process. But that's all part of it. And that's part of that journey, because as they explore who they are, the people they connect with will change. Some people may really get into different sports or music, and other people are into anime or other stuff. It really is cool how those shifts happen, and they kind of resettle and find people with new similar interests. So with that being said, the biggest issue we deal with as a school is stuff on social media. And so one of the things that we talk about a lot at school is that anything said on social media was said here at school. And we, under the Education Act, which is fantastically rewritten a little while back with this in mind, it doesn't matter when it happens. It can be 3 a.m. done on social media. That's a school incident if it's involving kids from the school and comes into the school community. And we don't deal with things like, fist fights, and, we don't deal with kids doing drugs at school and those kind of things. We have a very different climate. I have some friends that work at some pretty rough schools. It's not like that. But the stuff we deal with is a lot of more subversive stuff. And, just those little things, and social media has dramatically changed kid life. And it's something that, as a parent and as an educator, I would caution, be careful and monitor what's going on with your kids' stuff. Be aware and, read up on the things they're using. Read up on what's happening, because that's where a lot of the damaging things are coming out. There's a case right now, the young man who made choices in 8th grade and in the NHL, and he made horrible choices when he was in 8th grade, but those choices, even when we're younger, can have impacts into life, or adulthood, and social media permanently captures everything. And I always tell this to every kid who comes in here. Snapchat is, one of those type of things. I'm like, yes, it disappears for you. Yes, it disappears for the person on the other end. That doesn't mean it actually disappears. It actually doesn't even disappear from your phone. The file type changes, so you can't access it. But if you have the right technology, you can still access it. And so it's just important for kids to kind of gain that understanding. And that's part of the process. We talk about it with students. We work through it. Predominantly it comes towards the end of grade 7 and into grade 8. We really kind of explore those issues. Any questions kind of on that? Because I have talked a lot and I need a quick breath of fresh air. So any questions right now before I move on? I've probably overwhelmed you. I'm sorry. I have that effect. I often get the slow down, breathe. Yes, okay. So, looking at this, what is learning like in the college? And what is our goal? And so, we have shifted to more of a student-driven process of learning. And so I talked about early on the word ownership. We really want to build up kids who can manage, expectations, manage goals, timelines. But it's our goal. It is not where they're at. So coming out of grade 6, there's a bit of a shift in learning style. And there's often a bit of a oh my gosh, what is happening? This is so different. I taught in grade 6 here for many years. They are very different environments, and it's intentional. Coming into junior high, you're dramatically changing the way your brain functions, so we change a lot of the way school is done. But here's a kind of cautionary tale for you parents. It does not mean they're ready to go, and off. Go forth, you are ready for adulthood. They are not. They will tell you they are, some will at least, but they still will need supports at home. They're still going to need some reminders. I always say, one of the best tactics I hear from the really wise parents, I'm often okay, I need your book when you write it because you got this down. Sunday meetings where you check in and be what do you have coming up? Let's look at, the schedules. Let's look at these things. Maybe what are you using to manage? Those constant reminders. They're at a point where the day-to-day management, most of them will be able to do on their own, but they're still going to need your help in the big picture. And what's even crazier is they're actually going to want you to help. They won't say it. I promise you, they'll probably get mad at you when you do it, but they still will want that help. They're still going to want those supports. And I often hear it's yeah, who helped you? This? My mom did. She really helped me. And then I tell the parent that, they're really? Every time we do it, they yell at me and tell me to leave them alone. I'm no, they love it. And you tell them I told you that. Then they come and they're mad at me, why did you rat me out to my mom? I'm but those are the things, they're still going to need your help. They're still going to need your support. The jump to grade 6 and 7 in terms of maturity is not huge. And you know where kids are at now? They're functioning well. If they made it to grade 6 at Masters, they're awesome students. And realistically, if they survive to grade 6, they're very capable and they're ready. But it's just they continue to need that support, that care and consistency. And even when they say they hate you, they don't. Okay, you're gonna hear that once or twice, but really what's happening is they're dealing with emotions and they really need that constant support. And as I kind of said before, they're gonna have an assigned teacher, you're gonna have people that ask questions, and if there's bigger things, feel free to reach out to me. That's what we're here for, is to support you in this journey. That's kind of the goals of school. We are the extension in some ways of your family, but you're still the parents. There's going to be times where we're going to come to you and be what's going on? How can we help you? And it's part of that kind of relationship that we really want to grow. Now, again, as I said before, it is common for kids to find the first month or so of junior high challenging. And it's a bit of it's a whole change, and no matter where kids end up, it's always whoa, what is this? We change classes more. Grade 6, they're in 3 rooms side by side, and then they sometimes go on an adventure way down the hall up to art, or next door to the music room. It is a very different feel because up here is predominantly where their classes are. So there's 3 math rooms, 1, 2, and 3. There's 3 ballet rooms, but they might have languages in different places. They're going to have options in different places. They're going to voyage around a bit more, and it is a different feeling. They can, after a little bit, go off campus for lunch. And that's something as a parent, if you're oh heck no, please no, you can tell us, we will not let them, but that is part of that responsibility of they're going to have some new responsibilities, they're going to have some new freedoms, they're going to have their own laptop. I guarantee you I will catch, in the first month of school, over 3/4 of the kids texting. It's usually their moms. Sometimes their dads, and occasionally each other. And I'm you may not do that, but my mom had a question. I don't care. You may not text your mom in class. Okay? I'm speaking to you. You know who you are, people. But this is the things that we deal with. Or playing video games. Some people are oh my gosh, I can have have a game on my screen, and I'll switch it when they're not looking. You notice there's a lot of windows in the back of classrooms? That's intentional. Yeah, I walk up, I'm like, "They're playing games. I can see it." Yeah, and you're like, okay, this is all part of that journey. They will make bad choices. And I mean, you look at most adults, when they get new freedoms, they make some bad choices sometimes too. That's how we learn. Some kids need to touch the hot stove, some will see others do it and not do it. Everyone's different, but that's all part of like the cool part of this process. And you know, one of the things, like, we don't necessarily have a strong dress code here. You know, we don't have like a 600-page, this is our rules. This is their workplace. We talk about dressing for work. You know, this is where you come in. What's appropriate for that? You know, and so we don't want to spend all day every day like, okay, here's the ruler, let's measure your outfit. Like, we don't do that. That's not part of our dialogue, because we're here to nurture and care for kids. We're more like, hey, you know, you're going to drama class and you have a short skirt on. Is that going to work? Well, probably not. You're going to go read to some little kids. Is this the image you want to show? Well, maybe not. These are the discussions we have, and we try to like really change how we look at things. And so, I mean, there's larger things which we will deal with very quickly, but you know, little decisions and those kind of things, we really want to coach the kids through them. Because again, as I said, they are going to make some bad choices, and that's okay. You really can't discover who you are without finding who you're not. And that is part of that journey. So the last thing, and again, I apologize for doing this, I know this is emotional to hear, but high school is 3.5 years away. And it's important to just have a very foundational understanding of how high school works, because we as a school prepare for something called -1 high school. So for the majority of you who went through high school in Alberta, there was predominantly like 30 classes, and then there was 33. So 30 was you're going to university and you're successful, 33 is you're struggling. They have fortunately really reframed how that's done. Would you like to speak to that? Because Mrs.
I can if you want, sure.
Yeah, Mrs. McAllister is the expert on high school, so.
And you can breathe for a minute. So, just like Brian was saying, the numbering has changed. If you are intending to apply to university, which really that's what master's graduates are setting themselves up for, you have to be taking those -1 courses. So -1 means university prerequisite level of study. So, you know, if you look around at literature, some schools will say, well, that's pre-AP. Well, yes, it's -1. It just means it's readiness for university. There are 3 lower levels. There's -2, -3, and -4. The only exception universities will make is in math. So there are some programs, there's actually many now, where they will either accept -2 or even recommend -2 in the math area. So a good example of that is nursing, because the level of math is not abstract calculus math, it is practical ratios. How am I doing these proportions? That's more of a -2 style of learning. But students who are interested in things like engineering, physics, a high-end business program, including other science programs and things like psychology, you have to have the -1 in everything, including the math. But there's no exceptions for English, for social, for biology, chem, physics are all 30 level. And then the only probably bonus for kids in high school is French and Spanish are optional selections, but they are core courses when you're applying to university. No diploma exam. So there's not very many of those courses in Alberta that are true 30 level, difficult study prerequisite for university that don't attach a diploma exam to them. The foreign languages and calculus are the exceptions. So as our students are going through junior high, it is important that you know junior high is homogeneous in Alberta, meaning most students, short of having a really serious disability in learning, are really taking the same program, and very much so till the end of grade 8. Then there's some allowance in 9th grade. But when we are prepping our students through junior high, we have in mind our high school programming, which is -1. So that means students find our junior high rigorous. When we have new students enter who have not gone through the master's elementary system, they will go, whoa, okay, they can get there, they can adjust. But even though we're all teaching the same outcomes, how deep you go with learning, how much you require analysis and evaluation and reflection on your learning, there's a variation school to school. Because we have a population of students who are keen learners, then we are able to take them to that higher level to ensure that our graduates can apply to university, which again really is our focus. We don't have enough physical space, as you could probably already tell, to have -2, -3, -4. We have chosen very carefully and methodically to be that -1 version of high school, but coming into junior high, then you need to understand we are prepping our students to transition seamlessly from 9th grade to 10th grade.
Yeah, and it's just always good to have that in mind, because again, we teach the same curriculum like across the board, but we really want to push students and kind of raise the bar, which I say because that's our school theme this year. So grades 7 to 12, we're talking about raising the bar. And so everybody's at different levels. Not everyone's a 90% student. And I was laughing, I was talking to some grade 10 students and like, I tried really hard and I only got 80. And I'm like, that's great. But I always get 90s. I work hard and I get it. I'm like, yeah, but there's more to it. We're growing, we're excelling, we're raising the bar. And that's part of that process is, the expectations gradually go up. And let's be honest, once we get into the later years, they go up pretty quick. And it is a pretty kind of cool but challenging process. And so it's just important to have that end goal in mind, because we really want, and our graduates, we want all of them to have the ability to go to university if they choose. Now, not everyone has to go to university. That is not a must, because there's many amazing careers outside. But we want them to have that choice. There's nothing worse, and we can probably all think of people who are like, well, I'm not going to university, and then they graduate and then I want to go to university, and they have to do upgrading and all this extra. That is not something we don't entertain them. We want them to have that ability to go and have that choice after they graduate. Most of our life choices shouldn't be made when we're 16 and 17. Not that we don't get good ideas and stuff like that, but if I made the choices when I was 16 and 17, I'd be a professional football player right now, which I wasn't very good at. So that would not have ended up very well. So that's where, again, the Imaginal Design program, when we get into high school, really helps students think through careers and opportunities and global change and creativity, and really gets them to think of a place that doesn't necessarily exist yet. I mean, I use a simple example. A couple years ago, all of those little scooters started appearing around the city. If we went back 4 or 5 years ago, the idea that someone charges those and collects them, and that was like a career that didn't even exist. Now it's a pretty normal thing. An Uber driver, like you go back 8 or 9 years ago, that was not really a thing. Uber Eats, like delivering food. I tried to explain that to my wife's grandma, who's 97, and I was like, yeah, you go on the website, you enter, and someone brings it, and she's like, you pay extra? Oh yeah, it's like double the cost. What? And like she looked horrified. But the world is dramatically changing, and the environment our kids are going to be launched into will be very different than what we were, and that's what we really want and at our heart to prepare them for that. So I really just want to say thank you. I appreciate you taking this time. I hope we didn't overwhelm you too much. And as I said at the beginning, this is the beginning of the journey. This is the beginning of the conversation. But I just want to say, no matter how challenging it is and the ups and downs, I promise you it's going to be all right. It is very, kind of daunting at times, and it's big change. But honestly, the kids come into grade 7 and they do great. They settle in well. They love the teachers, and that's part of the reason I love working here. We have a phenomenal group of teachers. They're amazing, and they love the kids. Some of them have been here for quite a while. Very long. Some of them have been here since the beginning, 25 years. And they stay here because our expectations on teachers are incredibly high, the same as it is in the academy. We expect a lot of them, but they choose to be here because they love what we're doing. And so, thank you, and we'll open it up to questions now if you have any. Yes?
So is there an attrition rate with students in -1 expectation? Is there an attrition rate?
Are you speaking from 9th grade to 10th grade?
I'm speaking for junior high, because you're preparing them for high school, and high school is aiming at -1, so presumably there's an attrition rate.
I would say a small one, yes, but for the most part, because of the support and the preparedness of the students coming to us, they can handle what we're suggesting, right? They can get there. It's just important for you to understand that level. My favorite one is students will say, you didn't teach us this and it was on the test. It's like, yes, that's right. Because you have to make those conclusions, you have to draw pieces together for yourself. And so it's a minor church, right? Because we have lots of support and small class size, right? Also is a big part of it. We are absolutely committed to our class size numbers.
And then the second question I have is Young Life.
Yeah.
Can you just explain who these people are, where they come from?
Yeah, so they're from, it's a large, huge organization, and they are sponsored by churches and stuff like that, and they're well vetted, and so they kind of have volunteers who just want to work with young people. We kind of meet with them and work through it, and so they just kind of volunteer within the school, and they volunteer at lots of different schools. During COVID, they were volunteering even at, I think, 6 or 7 CBE high schools. They were at Bears Paw Christian, they're at CCS, so they're at a whole variety of schools, and their entire organization's purpose is just to help mentor young kids. And they fundraise through, their networks of people, and this is their life passion, is just kind of helping kids. And then they have camps, so they have three large camps in British Columbia that they take kids to in the summer that are interested in going. And so predominantly the majority of their volunteers are university age students. The majority of them want to go into education, and so it's good volunteer experience for them as well.
So is there a body that vets them?
Yep. Yeah. They have a whole organizational structure that vets them. They go through criminal record checks as well. Anybody who ends up kind of volunteering in the school, I meet with them as well, and so they have a whole process they go through. Yes.
Yeah, could you please send out a more detailed email in terms of the pre-university courses you just mentioned?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
What I could actually do is we're going to be sending out the sessions. I will add in the grade 9 to 10 session, because that would be a really kind of simple way to walk through all of those things. The easiest way is university acceptance now is just 5 courses for almost all university courses, especially in Canada. It is 5 grade 12 courses that they look at. I know, it's like, what? Where is it? Yes.
And core though, not just anything.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it varies. So, the program you're going into will change what the 5 courses are. You're going into an engineering course. It's going to be 2 sciences, English, math, and maybe calculus. You're going into a political science program. It's going to be social 30, English 30, math 30, maybe even -2. And so it just varies from course to course. Some you can even apply with phys ed. We do a world religions course in grade 10. Some programs you can use that, and so it varies a lot. But one of the cool things is all universities now actually have neat little things set up where you can just click on a program, and it'll tell you exactly the expectations. But we'll share that session with you so you can see that. It's a good question. Yeah.
Can you just speak about to the supports on the class sizes?
Sure thing, that's a great question. So as far as class sizes go, we limit out at 23 per class. There has been the occasional time when we've gone to 24 just to kind of balance things out, but that is our absolute max. Comparative to a friend who teaches grade 8 at a CB school, it's 38 in this class right now. So we really like to see 23, 24. When you go quite a bit smaller than that, especially for the grade 7, 8, 9, there's a lot of actually drawbacks in terms of friendships, groupings, and those kind of things. So we kind of find that our sweet spot. And as far as supports are in place, it's kind of the teacher supports. I'm the learning support coordinator, so I coordinate all of the IPPs and special needs and those kind of things. And our model of profound learning, we really try to scaffold things in place so kids have a lot of flexibility in what they're doing. So they have a lot of opportunity. Now, in math, there's not very much flexibility. There are some things where we teach a very traditional math program. It's similar to the elementary with the jump math. We use a similar program where we use jump math for 7 and 8, but we really like that concrete. But within social studies, there's a lot of flexibility. There's flexibility in the benchmarks within the options, and so we really try to create that environment. And we were talking this morning about one student. We're like, we put these things in place, but we never even really, we just do it. So a lot of the supports just kind of come naturally in the process.
Well, there's other things we have either a tutorial block,
Yes.
often in junior high, which is then where a teacher can work specifically with students. This year we morphed it to a learning skills block because we see the deficits from COVID. So we've said, this is more than just a little boost of extra help. We need to teach them some skills that they missed because they weren't in school every day. That you can imagine the accumulation of a couple of years of a missed skill here and there. So we created a very directed block this year specifically to give them some of those skills and teach them the skills explicitly that we would have seen in past years they would have picked up sort of more naturally over time.
And is there proactive communication with parents if it feels like there's this gap or?
Yeah, for sure. So Brian talked about the relationship with those core teachers. We also have all of our marks online. So I know you're adapted to the parent portal to see grades. All of our grades go through parent portal. And they are actual grades. It's not just a reporting to you. So you would see every assignment. Teachers can make comments right there on a particular assignment, like, hey, book a time for a rework with me. Those kind of comments can end up in there. But even option mark will end up online for you to see and to be able to track that. So we don't recommend checking daily. That'll make all of you just a little bit tense with each other, like families. But probably once a week is good, like Brian was talking about that Sunday night conversation. This could be a Tuesday night conversation. It doesn't hurt to kind of be kicking tires once a week, going in and taking a look to see where things are at. And if you see, something not handed in, what will your child say? I gave it to the teacher and they didn't mark it. Where is it? In their locker or their backpack? Or it's on their laptop and it hasn't been shared with the teacher. It's somewhere if they've done it. But it's clarifying those things with the teacher directly. I see this wasn't handed in. Can you help me understand where it might be?
Yeah, and I think there's different levels of angst. So if the kid's in the 70s, we'll wait until, if there's a concern there, like they're unachieving, we'll wait until our first parent conferences generally come in early October, mid-October. Yes.
Mid-October.
Yeah, mid-October. So we'll wait till then. But, if there's really big concerns, we have meetings really quickly. If there's, I generally will meet with the grade 6 teachers and we'll say, what are some, concerns that you've seen? And we'll have just what we call a transition meeting with the kids. And so I'll gain an understanding of the IPPs and we'll set up times to meet. If there's really big concerns, I'll even meet with you in June and we'll set up some strategies to be in place for the beginning of the year. We had, we've dealt with kids with anxiety and, might have them come in a couple days before school starts and, explore the school, see where your lockers will be and those kind of things. So it really varies and we really try to personalize it from person to person and kid to kid.
Yeah, and there's emotional supports. I think I was mostly addressing academic, but we also have Cindy Lerner who works K-12. She will come in and speak directly to the college-age students about college-age issues. The anxiety that can come, the test anxiety, the shifting friendship circles is a pretty big deal in junior high. So she will come in and address that. That just lets students remind who is she, have a bit of rapport with her, and then there's ways either we can refer or you can refer if you need that emotional support as well.
Great question.
And we have, I should say too, a guidance counselor. That is separate from Cindy Lerner. So our career and guidance counselor, Charlene Foster, that is something you access once you're in college. And so if you're interested to know things like university chats, there's no limit on how young your child is. Once you're in college, you have access to book times with Charlene. And she'll meet with you as many times, answer as many questions as you would like to. And she's the expert in all those things for us.
Yes?
Yeah, sorry. As I know, some of the kids will have to miss some of the Friday courses because of some sports training.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've heard from other parents as well, if it is possible to arrange less academic courses on Friday.
So generally what we do is we can't necessarily have less academic courses on Friday because we have our high school courses which run every day and then our scheduling kind of goes off there with the amount of teachers we have. But one of the things we do is all of our learning, for the most part, is captured in the Genius program, which is what we use for all of our stuff. So in grade 6, it's kind of the transitional year where they're using Google Classroom and Genius. My daughter, I think she came home with her first Genius assignment and I was like, oh, okay, we're there, yay. And I get excited about that. But everything's captured in there, everything's clearly laid out. And so we generally say, if you're gonna miss some school, just the student can talk to the teacher, the parents can reach out to the teacher, and we'll set something up. We've had a lot of students who compete in high-end athletics that miss, large chunks of times or regular small chunks of time, and there's a lot of arrangements that we can make, and put in place really simply to kind of work through those things.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
How many new students do you get coming in every year from outside?
Great question. It really varies. We generally get 30 to 50 applications. And again, from year to year, it can change so much. But we have seen very few kids leaving over the past couple of years. So we're really talking about 4 or 5 new kids coming in each year, depending on how many kids. Like we like to be right up to our max number of 69. So we will fill up to there. So depending on what the turnover rate is, 4 or 5, maybe we go wild and have 7 or 8.
Is there a drop-off then for high school on their team?
Yeah, so we generally see, because high school gets very specific in terms of programming, so we'll see kids who are, I want to play football. We don't have a football team, we're not that large. Or, there's some very specific programs like, some students may want to go into the cosmetology program, or, some kids move. And so we see, and there's the occasional time where kids like, I've been here since kindergarten to grade 9, I am moving somewhere else. And they had that discussion. And it's happening less and less, but we've seen that quite a bit in the past. And so we generally see a fall off of kids. And then there's some kids who will self-select out and be like, you know what? I don't feel like I want that push of a -1 programming. I want to do a -2 programming. And so they will self-select and say, like, I want to go to a place that just doesn't have that university focus. And so we see a few kids every year that might move off of that reason.
And you are the taste that keeps me thirsting.